Heyo, Oro here. So, I wanted to make this video going over a more in-depth explanation of what exactly all of the new reloaded content that was mentioned in the Arsenal Discord blog actually means, like what purpose it serves, why it's there, and what you can do with it. Now, starting out, it's like, what is the point of Reloaded? Which is, essentially they're updating their development infrastructure because it's outdated. So Roblox as a platform has an ever-increasing standard of development. Like every day you see, not every day, every once in a while you'll see like a game that kind of like, its quality just kind of does not feel like Roblox anymore. It blows things out of the water. You've got like, I know, like Frontlines is a big one for a while. They have that Doom Eternal remake, which is pretty insane. All those super high fidelity games, and Arsenal, as an aging game with an aging player base, needs to be able to keep up with that rising standard. And working with outdated infrastructure is really difficult because it's both straining on the developers because, it takes longer to implement higher quality content. They need to actually grow the game. And it limits the type of content they can actually add because it's harder to add new types of content. And I think the greatest way to explain what developing with a outdated development infrastructure is similar to trying to use Windows 7 applications to do things that you could do 10 times easier in like Windows 10. So yeah, and the most important distinction between that is the front end and back end. So they're updating the back end first, which is player data and anything that's not really pertaining to gameplay. So again, like I said, player data, how all the new features and systems communicate with each other, how things are processed, etc., etc. And then there's front end, which is stuff like, the GUI, the HUD, making the guns fire, all the animations, what the actual content in game is. So they're trying to essentially make systems that make that process like way more efficient, because the faster it is, the less demotivated they will become when it takes longer to create new content. The higher quality the content they will be able to make, and the more diverse the content they can make. All of these are super important for growing the game, which is why they've been prioritizing making this update for so long. And I know to some it's been annoying because it's like, oh, well, they've been spending less time making actual content production for Arsenal itself, Feels like the last couple of updates have really been just kind of like the same thing, but, retextured. Well, the thing is they only have one programmer right now, or one lead programmer. They have other programmers, but they're not necessarily, they don't have as much control as, let's say, Zone does. And so, going off of this, that means you have a team of developers who are making content for the game, but they can only expand the content as much as the programming will allow them to. And with Zone being focused on, making the newer version of Arsenal, there creates a rift where, oh hey, you only have content developers able to produce content with the tools that they have available to them, which are outdated. I think we can both see why that would not be a good thing for growing the game. So that is kind of the idea. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other benefits to, updating your infrastructure. They can make better monetization to grow the game even more, expand the team. They can create, they can improve pre-existing systems in the game, whether that be like social interactions, moderation, workshop stuff, etc., etc. They can also, add a more involved community and stable player economy, which is going to help keep the game alive in the long run. And then also just overhaul general in-game content to make it higher quality. And with that, I think I'm going to move into the new changes that they've mentioned in blog. So I'm going to start off with the locker rework. So the locker is going to be an interesting thing it's an interesting thing to get used to, I guess I should say, because there's no longer going to be duplicate skins. So some of you probably have opened crates a billion times, you get like 40 of one skin, and it's like, what do I do with this? Because especially like if it's like a common skin, it's like it's not even worth to use it in crafting because they give so little EXP when trying to like put it into something. So having no more duplicates will kind of simplify the inventory a bit, which is really nice. Not only that, but they've said that duplicates will be transformed into XP tokens, which is a concept I'll explain later on, but it is something to take note of. they're also adding titles and weapon charms. Titles are going to be obtained through seasonal challenges, achievements, story-driven accomplishments, etc., as more of a, like, as just a, you know, another cosmetic to equip in your inventory. I think the idea of titles is really neat. It's just another way to kind of express yourself, give a silver lining to your character, your player profile. They said that it'll likely be displayed under your username or replace it altogether, and it will always be available or always be visible to teammates. Now, what I think that means is that, hey, what names can you replace? So you have, like, you know, the one in the kill feed, the one in the chat, you have the one in the tab menu. Oh, you also have, like, the one that's displayed over the head, like, you know. And I think that the title will either completely replace that one, or it will display somewhere underneath it. And so, because those are things, like, I especially think it would be the name over the head, you know, because those are that's one of the few sections of text that is always visible to your teammates. I mean, of course, in the tab menu, but not everybody's playing the game with the tab open all the time. And I assume that would be available to all of the other players as well. So I'm just going off, I think it's going to be the text over the head that is where that would typically be displayed. Now, they've also said that it's going to be displayed for other players, meaning like enemies, people that aren't teammates, in like the kill cam, so under the calling card name probably, and in player profiles, so in here, yeah, somewhere in here. Another thing is, with the introduction of titles, they've also added this concept called gilding. Now, I don't know if y'all remember the Dominus skins, but the way you could, you know, unlock special unusuals and events for those was upgrading that skin with a copy of itself. And that was the only way you were actually able to level up that skin in the first place. And it's a similar concept here, where you can only get a guild on a title if you have a duplicate of that title. So let's say you have a farmer title, you get 2 of them, you would have, you know, gilded level 1 because you got a copy of it. And it raises the question that is, what is the max guild, right? It opens up a lot of avenues of content and cosmetics that you can use to really create neat combinations, I think. And next is the weapon charms. So again, they said that it'll be obtained like similarly to that of the titles, which is through seasonal challenges, achievements, story-driven accomplishments, and will function as unusuals for weapon skins. So you know how unusuals work on characters, where it's, you know, a particle effect on a player's character just displays on their head, or, you know, in that general area. However, it can only be attributed to one individual skin at a time. I'm going to presume it's going to be a similar concept, where you have a weapon charm kit, and you can use it to apply a weapon charm to a weapon skin. And given that, you know, weapon charms are, given that item kits in general are planned to be tradable, it creates this really interesting dynamic within like player economy stuff, where you can actually create neat combinations of weapon skins and weapon charms. And given they're tradable, you can only imagine how much you could make that worth. Especially like if we take like CSGO weapon skins, for example, like you have an expensive skin with, you know, expensive stickers on it. It's a similar concept. There's some really cool stuff you can do to create some high value items. It will have the same deconstruction feature as character unusuals, and what that means is something I'll go into later. It's, again, I think the general message here is that they'll function the same as, you know, unusuals. Okay, the other thing is that unlike item kits, right, which can't be applied to, okay, thanks Arsenal. Okay, so unlike unusual kits where they can't be applied to the shuffle character skin, the weapon charm kits will be able to be applied to the none weapon skin here. I don't know why this has the shuffle icon. I've never understood that, or why it's not at the very start. Anyways, yeah, you'll be able to apply it to this like it would be like an unusual. And that means, you know, you can actually use weapon charms on weapon skins without actually having a weapon skin on, which is pretty neat. And, you know, lastly for the locker additions is they're just improving the overall UI and UX, which I believe is probably one of the most undersold aspects of the entire thing. So UX stands for user experience. And I think everybody has experienced bad user experience. I don't know if you've tried to make like an appointment or something with like the most dog shit website imaginable on like your phone, and it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But then sometimes you have like, you know, some office somewhere that has like a really nice website. They lock the fuck in, works on mobile, obviously paid somebody who knows what they're doing. Because that person that made it values user experience on all devices. They want to make it convenient, fast, efficient. You know, the quickest way to onboard new customers and whatever. Same concept here is the locker is making it easier for players to traverse the locker and all of its content and features, while also providing all those content and features. So it's not only, hey, we have a bunch of different types of cosmetics and a bunch of different things you can do with them, but it's also convenient and easily digestible the way that you're supposed to actually use them. That's why user experience is super important. And it's something that I want like more people to talk about, really, because it's a priority. And it's something that I haven't seen a lot of people even give any feedback on, especially in the earlier testing sessions. Moving forward, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the crafting rework. So this is where I'm talking about the stuff that I said I was going to talk about later, which is XP tokens. So what the hell are XP tokens? I don't entirely know what XP tokens are, but I presume they're going to function similar to that of like you know how you have a duplicate skin, right? You have like a, what do you call it? Like legendary skins, right? They give 50 XP towards leveling up an item. I feel like it's going to be a similar concept. And so you can level up an item by kind of like let me show you an example. So I'll try to upgrade this. So Ace Pilot, right? Crafting, you know, I have all these duplicates. Imagine these two are like, you know, maybe like the large XP token. This is the small one, right? And it's going to put XP into your character to level it up. On top of that, they've also said they were interested in adding possibly adding the ability to gain XP while you use the item. So instead of just only having to feed duplicates into skins to level them up to get collector unusuals, playing the game will not only put in like XP towards your level, it will also put XP towards the items you have equipped. So that makes it kind of possible to actually level up all of the items in the game. And for people who collect items, it actually motivates them to use things that are outside of the skins that they've like spent a lot of time collecting. Another thing is, I mentioned the addition of titles, and I mentioned that, hey, you can actually earn a title right now. And how would that work? It's not out yet. Well, as they're porting content over, they're going to be converting duplicate characters to XP tokens, right? And that's really unfair to players who have like a huge collection of a specific character. So they have like, you know, they mentioned specifically the title that you can get right now requires you to have 100 or more copies of an outfit. Now, from the questions that I've asked, the title is skin specific. So what that means is if you get it on like the farmer, it'll give you a title related to farmer. Or like it'll give you the title that's like, I don't know, maybe like farmer #1 fan. I think that's the one that Delkin used as an example. You can only get this title once per character. So if you have 100 plus of them, you can't have 200 characters and get 2 titles. So guilding won't apply to these titles, but you will be able to get it. Now, what this also means is you can't actually get this for event items that only gave out 1 copy of a given outfit. Like, for example, in this update, you have like Ghost. Ghost is only given 1 time. You only ever get 1 copy of Ghost. And so you can't have up to 100. It's just not possible. And, you know, there are a few ways, which I don't want to spoil just yet for future videos. That means these are going to be fairly exclusive, but also limited to pretty much only shop skins, or skins that you could get multiple times during events, which essentially means like the Dominus skins. Another thing that I found out, which is interesting, is that unusuals, duplicate unusuals, count towards that copy amount. So 100 plus copies, that includes 100 plus copies of a unusual. So if you have, God forbid, like 100 Milo unusuals, those would count towards that thing, and whatever skin you had with 100 Milo unusuals would be you would get the title for that. Even though, you know, you could only get maybe that skin that you had 100 Milos on once. Unusuals in the next version of Arsenal are going to be applied to all styles of a character. So let's take, for example, I have Ace Pilot, Holiday Pilot. both of these skins here would only require me to get one unusual. So every unusual that I have here, yeah, it would be applied to Ace Pilot and Holiday Pilot, instead of, you know, having to go through and put the unusual on Ace Pilot and Holiday Pilot. And of course, yes, if you have two of a, like for example, I have a Milo Holiday Pilot, I have a Milo Ace Pilot, both of these are counted as duplicates. So if you have a ridiculous amount of delinquents, like some people do, Grand Nox, you'll end up with, you'll actually have every single one of those unusuals for every single one of those skins. This sounds like a bad thing for a lot of people who collect items, but in a way, this is actually pretty important change for UX, like I mentioned before, because I have a friend with over 7.5 pages of just delinquent variants with unusuals. And imagine having to scroll through 7 pages just to find one skin that you like of the same character. And imagine you had so many items that you had to do that for every single different variant. It's important with the new rework of the UI that, hey, maybe we should simplify this process, make it a little bit more convenient, especially for players that are new to the game and not, you know, familiar with the concept. From the UI concepts that have been shown, doing this in this way where unusuals are applied universally, it actually shows you both the character variants and unusuals in a pretty visually digestible manner. So like right now you don't see what unusuals are available in game. There's no listing for it unless you go to the wiki. This new UI would visualize that. And I think it just makes it easier to build, like, you know, neat character sets, especially independent ones, given the new loadout system and whatnot. So again, duplicates will also be converted into XP tokens similarly to that of like character duplicates, like I explained before. They're introducing the concept of what they refer to as deconstructing an unusual. So what you can do is, let's say you have a skin on, I'll use Ace Pilot again. You have this one, you have the Castler's unusual, right? You can take this off of this and turn it into an item kit. And you have an item kit, right? But it's going to be character specific. So for example, I take it off of Ace Pilot, it's going to be an Ace Pilot Castler's unusual kit. So you can only use it on Ace Pilot and it will only give that unusual. However, if you have a Castler's unusual on 5 different skins, I don't know how the hell you would do that, but God forbid you manage to do it, you can turn it into what they refer to as a universal unusual kit. Now, universal unusual kits will be a combination of 5 different copies, like 5 separate skin-specific unusual kits, and will only give you one. So you can't turn all 5 of those unusual kits into 5 universal unusual kits. You turn all 5 of those specific unusual kits into one universal one that you can use on any other skin. So essentially, it creates a really hefty price for transitioning unusuals between skins. And like they mentioned in blog, this is actually going to end up taking a large number of copies of rare unusuals out of circulation. So if you're collecting high value and like old unusuals, getting those on a rare character is going to be damaging to the general player economy, which adds value to the item at the same time. It's crazy. It's a really neat idea. Another thing is, with the rework of the shop, they'll also be adding the concept of an unusual shop, where you can spend battle bucks or ciphers to purchase these unusuals and actually apply them to characters. The unusual shop is probably, not even the unusual shop, the unusual rework in general is probably one of the craziest things to happen to the player economy inside of Arsenal. Because think about it, right? People flex their unusuals all the time, but you know, you have no way of getting unusuals that came out like 7 years before you started playing the game. Which is, you know, unfair to new players, but, you know, also giving the ability to just give new players that thing again also makes it unfair to old players who have had that, kind of like a flex. And given the fact that they're planning on introducing trading to these, it creates this wild economic dynamic where you have, you know, the ability to actually obtain these super rare unusuals while also not damaging, you know, their rarity. If anything, it actually increases the rarity of that item. It's something to see, and I think, if anything, I would definitely start collecting unusuals now, if you don't have many, because I doubt they're going to be very cheap whenever they're actually traded. The next thing I wanted to talk about was official competitive. So this was probably one of the more vague topics they discussed, but I want to preface this with the same warning that they gave in the original post itself, which is legacy competitive will not be removed or altered in any way. So like if they're adding competitive, that's not going to replace legacy competitive. Legacy competitive is still going to be a game mode in the game that you can play. It's just, you know, people like it. It's fun. It's like a slightly different take on standard, which is nice. So in competitive will likely be its own thing. Think like Valorant, where you have like deathmatch and then also like this standard mode. It's just going to be a different mode, and then you also have competitive with that. You know, it's again just going to be a different mode that you could just play. It won't be voted in rounds. You'll probably go to it similar to that, like this extra menu where you have like events and whatever. So because it's going to be taking place in another menu, that means you won't be playing. There will be an actual like difference between casual and competitive. So you can either just hang out, play casual like I am right now. It's just a matter of, hey, do it if you want. Which I think is really nice. It's a good way to implement it. I think, you know, that's kind of the standard of implementing competitive systems, especially in FPS games. Continuing, the modes that will be available are going to be 1v1 and 2v2. So that seems like a fairly limited palette, but this is just to start out. And it outlines a pretty interesting dynamic that I think everybody has always known, at least after you've played a while, which is teams honestly don't really matter that much in Arsenal. Like, I mean, yes, it's nice when your teammates do something and it makes it a lot easier to win the game, but, you know, team isn't everything. Even if you didn't have a team, you can still win a game. And also, there's a number one at the end of the leaderboard for a reason. There's a singular number one player that got the MVP of the match, and that's kind of the idea, is you're trying to get MVP. So it's less of a team game and more of like a team-based individual progression game. And that's what they're playing on here. That's why they're doing 1v1 and 2v2. And 2v2 is even more interesting because I'm going to use competitive Mario Kart as an example here. But in competitive Mario Kart, you have people who actually drive backwards just to get busted items, just to fuck with the other team. Similar principle here is in 2v2s, you can actually have somebody who's really good at, you know, offense and shit, while also having somebody like doing support. Because here's the thing, the team that wins is the team that has somebody who gets first place. It's not, you know, second and third, it's not an average, it's, you know, who won the game, right? And so with that, it's like you actually can prioritize a offense, defense, and support class play style, which is really neat. It's something that I'm definitely looking forward to. And then also, ranked rewards, they mentioned that ranked rewards would be given out. And I have no idea what these will be. They haven't given a lot of information relating to them. And I have a few questions that, you know, you should just really think about, especially if you're planning on collecting items related to it, which is like, will those rewards be exclusive? So let's say there's like a rank number one. So somebody gets number one in the entire game, like highest ELO. Is that reward going to be like seasonal? Is it going to be permanently standing? Like, is it limited? You know, what are we dealing with here? And like also, will there even be like a number one? Will there be just like a general rank? Or will there be a leaderboard at all? Because the developers themselves have said they're very opposed to adding leaderboards to Arsenal just with the amount of exploiters that the game has. Just based off of the same thing, I don't really see why they would change it now when they've been interested in adding competitive but not leaderboards. So I doubt there will be a leaderboard, but I'm confident there will be a ranking system in which a secret leaderboard will be present. Another thing is like, where do you think they could take the game with competitive in mind? Because Arsenal is one of those games with an extremely dedicated player base. So, you know, how much can competitive actually change the direction of Arsenal as an entire game? Like, you know, we could see things that are like, we could see probably one of the more well-established Roblox esports things from this. It's more like technical and mechanical skill than it is like luck in most circumstances. I mean, luck plays into it, of course, like if you get stuck on a weapon, but it's not the same. It's like, even then, if you're good enough at the game, it doesn't matter. And it's something I'm excited to see. And last but not least, they didn't say that 1v1 and 2v2 were going to be the only team types available. they mentioned that they were thinking about doing something like 5v5s or 6v6, especially considering that they tried testing that out in the like basic pre-alpha testing session in the I think it's actually in here. Yeah. 1v1 ELO ranked competitive. They mentioned in here that they were going to plan on doing 5v5 for that. So, I don't know. This was kind of like my in-depth take on what exactly is all going on in regards to, you know, all the new information they've dropped relating to Arsenal Reloaded. So, if you enjoyed, please feel free to like and subscribe. I would definitely enjoy that as I'm trying to grow the channel. I think I have a huge list of other videos I just want to yap about and play the game. I'll probably be uploading soon, so keep an eye out. See ya.